So, hello everybody, and welcome to Heal with the Real. We're slightly late. It's absolutely fine, but we are still going live. And I've got an amazing guest tonight, Alison Lowe OBE, and she's the West Yorkshire. So just tell me your full title, Alison.
So I'm the Deputy Mayor for Policing and Crime in West Yorkshire.
Yeah. So thank you so much for agreeing to come on the podcast this evening.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm very excited.
So I do the podcast because I wrote and published my book in July 2021. And the reason why I do the podcast is because in the back of the book, I wrote all my healing techniques that I personally use to heal from domestic abuse. And then I started doing the Heal with the Real podcast because I knew how important it was to raise awareness so that other women, in case they had gone through domestic abuse, knew or had some tools to survive from the trauma of domestic abuse. And Alison, I'm super excited to have you as a guest this evening. It's just amazing to have you on. I would love to just go back. If you've done so much, so many things, the list is so huge, but I'd love to go right back to, when you were in your younger days. Have you always been from West Yorkshire? Have you always lived in West Yorkshire?
I'm a Leeds lass, and
Leeds through and through.
Yeah, flat vowels. I love it. I love Leeds. I love West Yorkshire.
Yeah, amazing. So talk me through, as a young person living in Leeds, what that was like for you.
So my dad is Caribbean heritage. He came from a beautiful island called St Kitts and Nevis. And my mum's Irish heritage, and I tell you that because it's important in our growing up, because we lived originally we lived in Chapeltown when I was very small, but my sister was knocked down on Roundhay Road, and obviously my mum and dad didn't want to live where she'd been knocked down and killed, so we were moved to Seacroft, where we were giving a council house. And we were one of three black families, so we were at the bottom end. Then the Okpovis were in the middle, and the Nelsons were at the other end, and it was a 4,000 council estate. So being one of three black families in the 60s, that didn't always go down well, and obviously we stood out like sore thumbs. But in a way, I have to say that growing up in Seacroft, whilst it had its challenges, and we'll go into that, I'm sure, it was also a gift. Because I think part of my strength, part of my resilience comes from what I learned there, comes from the knocks that I had there, that I learned to not just recover from, but also survive. And without that, if I'd have been in some lovely leafy suburb, maybe I'd be a bit of a softie, I don't know. But I feel like I'm a strong woman, that we get our knocks, but I also feel like I've got the tools to be able to deal with some of those because of that upbringing in Seacroft.
And what were some of those knocks? What do you want to talk about some of those?
Yeah, I regularly talk about them, and it's part of my healing. It's part of my healing. So I think the biggest thing that affected all of us was the racism. It was common, it was random, it was daily, it was cruel, and we just got the N-word all the time. People, there wasn't the Race Relations Act in them days, when people, didn't have the EDI training and understanding. There was nothing you could do. There was no phoning the police because it's a hate crime. It was a daily situation that all of us experienced. My dad in particular, because when my dad first came to this country, he couldn't get accommodation, he couldn't get a job, even though he'd been invited here as part of the Windrush generation. And so I think that was quite debilitating, but in a funny kind of way. We didn't really understand what it was. We knew that people didn't like us. Some people didn't like us because of the colour of our skin, but we didn't have the literacy around it. We didn't have the narrative around racism as we've got it today. You know, if somebody had taught was about unconscious bias, we would have thought it was a foreign language. So in a way, I think that was also a gift, because we didn't have the language to understand that we were experiencing racist abuse. And so it was just name calling to some extent. We knew it was deeper than that because you felt it. It was about how you looked, something you couldn't change. But in a way, we were able to survive it because we didn't understand the malevolence that sat behind it. It was just sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. There was a bit of that going on. The other thing that I think affected me in particular was there was a lot of sexual abuse in and around us as a family, and I experienced sexual abuse myself. So when I was about 5 years old, I was raped by the next door neighbour. I was a teenager, and I didn't speak about that for 40 years. So I was 45 before I talked about that. But the impact on me and on my mental health was acute. Through my 20s, I met and married a much older man when I was 17. Now, you know, you'd frown upon it. He was 14 years older. But in them days, you know, they didn't think about any of that. But I think now we'd call that coercive, controlling, and domestic, you know, and abusive. And he went on to be very abusive to me over many years. And in my 20s, the culmination of the domestic abuse and the historic childhood sexual abuse really tipped me over the edge. I was incredibly depressive. My anxiety began to develop in my 20s, and I was suicidal and contemplated suicide for most of my late 20s, if I'm honest. And I think the other thing about living in Seacroft, negative, was around the expectation, the aspiration. So I'd go to school, you know, I was told I was stupid. I was told I would never succeed. I was told I couldn't, I wouldn't ever, you know, there was that negativity that came from a lot of teachers. And I think that was about us being Black, but it was also about us being working class. And it wasn't until I went to high school, I met the amazing Mrs. Proney, who was my history teacher. And she used to say to me, London School of Economics. It was like, I don't know what she's on about, but she was saying to me, you should be going to the London School of Economics because you've got a first class brain. And she was the first person who told me I was clever. And she made me think I was clever. And that's why I ended up going to university much later than I wanted to, in a very roundabout route, because I had 2 kids by the time I went to university. But without her, I wouldn't have gone at all, because she created that spark. She set that expectation and she made me believe that I could. So I did.
Amazing. As a 20-year-old then, and you're in an abusive relationship and you're in this bout of depression, how do you then move through that? Or you said you didn't speak about it till you were 45.
Yeah.
How do you move through that? Or did you tell anybody, or did you just hold that into yourself?
So the sexual abuse I didn't talk about till I was 45. And in a way, I put it to the back of my mind. I do remember really, really clearly in my late 20s having a nightmare, and I was remembering the rape. I remembered it really clearly. It was like a nightmare, and I woke up screaming, and I was shaking, and the sweat was pouring off me. And I remembered, and I knew what had happened. This thing that I'd buried for years and years suddenly resurfaced, and it was there, and I knew it was true. I knew it had happened, and I was so shocked that I don't know why it came at that point. I don't know why it was hidden for so long. That was obviously me keeping myself safe. But I remember it coming, and I was so shocked that I didn't dare talk about it, because I didn't believe anyone would believe me, because it's so long before, so many years had passed and I hadn't talked about it. And I just knew nobody would believe me. So I just swore then I would never tell another person, because nobody would believe me, because why hadn't I said something at the time? I actually did say something at the time to my brother, but I don't think he believed me. I think he thought I'd seen someone on telly and I was being ridiculous. And, you know, and he said, if that's true, my mum will batter you. My mum was a big Catholic. And I did believe that there would be some repercussions for me. And that was another reason why I didn't talk about it. The domestic abuse, I think the thing about that is, again, my mum, big Catholic, you've made your bed, Alison, you lie on it. You know, that was very much her thinking. That's how she spoke. You know, when we were kids, you'd go in crying that somebody had called you the N-word, and she'd say, you get out there and batter them, or I'll batter you. So, you know, this is the kind of woman. amazing woman, you know, so strong in so many ways. She'd been dragged up, eldest of, you know, 11 kids, Irish heritage family.
Yeah.
She fought for, she had to leave school at 14 to look after all her siblings. You know, she didn't get fairness in her life. She knew what that looked like, the abuse she suffered when she married my dad. So it was a very, very strong woman whose life had dealt some heavy blows. She lost my sister on Roundy Road. She'd been killed on Roundy Road. That's why we moved to Seacroft. In Seacroft, she had a little boy. My dad wanted a boy. He got a boy. He had a cot death. So there was tragedy, real tragedy. And that woman showed me what resilience looked like, showed me what, you know, you dust yourself off, you get up, you do it, you do what you've got to do and you don't moan about it. And so I'm not saying that's the right thing to do now, because for your mental health, that's not right. You need to talk about it, you need to get healing, you need to find the right path for you. But that's what she learned. She was you know, she was a pre-war baby, born in 1937, and that's how she was brought up. And so some of that rubbed off on us and some of it was good. So I never talked about my domestic violence. I'd made my bed, I had to lie in it. But I knew it wasn't right. And then I began to think about the consequences for my children, what they were potentially going to witness one day. And I made a plan. And my plan was that I needed to get out, but I needed to get out in a better situation than I was currently in. And I decided that education was my route, and I wanted to go to university, because Mrs. Proney had told me I could. And I really, really was embarrassed that I'd ended up married with 2 kids and not ended, well, 1 kid at that time, because when I decided to go to university, I had 1 child. The day before my interview at Leeds University, I discovered I was pregnant again. Wow, talking about being knocked down. Wow. And, you know, I had a choice to make. Is that your excuse not to go? Or, you know, is it your only chance to make that change? And I decided it was the only chance I was going to have to make that change. And I had my baby on the 9th of September, and I walked into that university on the 27th. You know, so wow. She was 2 weeks old. She was round my neck. She was 2 weeks old. I was breastfeeding. You know, I lactated in lectures. I fell asleep. I was a mess. I was late for French at 9 o'clock on a Wednesday. Always late for French, but thank God. My lecturer was a lovely, lovely socialist man, Brian Page, and he never, ever reported me, and he passed me. If he hadn't passed me that first year, I'd have been gone. But he looked after me, and I managed to pass my first year exams. And in fact, I won the John Cox History Prize, which was, I got the top mark. I still to this day don't know how that happened. But friends, allies, supporters, people that you don't ever expect to be there for you, they were there for me. And I made it through, and I got my degree, and that was the platform upon which I built. And it meant that not only could I leave, but I could leave with the prospect of a better job and a life for my children that was better than the one that I'd had in Seacroft.
Something that you just hit on as well is, you know, the emotions of how we are told to hold in our emotions. And I think it's so important, isn't it, to feel them emotions and work through them. Because we're all, oh, shut up, stop crying, you'll be all right, you know, all that kind of thing. And it's so important to actually cry, let it all out. If you want to bloody cry, have a good cry.
My brother constantly was told, you're a big girl's blouse. Stop being a big baby all the time. Oh, and he's got, you know, he's had some profound mental health difficulties. Is rarely, you know, in a good place now. He's learned his own, you know, methods for staying well. But he had that all his life, you know. So for a man, he was told. Yeah. My mother believed all that, and same for us, you know. Shut your roaring. What are you roaring for? Shut up, you know. And you just get over it. Get over it. And there were no talking, and that's why I didn't talk about my abuse. That's why I didn't talk about my domestic abuse. My mum didn't want to know. She wanted you to show her a happy side and get on with life. And once you've made your bed, wow, you had to lie in it. And I think that's really what she thought through her own life, because I'm sure she wasn't married, happily married to my dad. I mean, my dad was a star. He put up with a lot, let's be honest. But she would never have left him, and he would never have left her, because that was how they were brought up.
Yeah. And was there a fear element as well, Alison, in the fact that you didn't want to speak up about it?
Oh yeah.
For me, there was a huge fear, and you know, I was just talking about that just about 10 minutes ago. Like, fear's a really debilitating thing, isn't it? When you get that fear set in, you can't move forward, can you? Once you feel in that fear. But I think but when you're stepping into it, you can move through it and achieve so much.
And and I used to, when the violence came, I'd say, come on then, and I'd move into his space, and then he'd move back. It was a tactic to stay safe, because even though he was hitting me, I knew I was showing him my face and giving him my teeth. Come on, come on, because that's how I've been brought up. That's how I've been brought up. I sort of move into it, and then he'd be like, whoa, and he'd move out of it. So it was a tactic that worked, but I couldn't let him win. I could not let him win, but I couldn't talk about it, because to talk about it, acknowledge that it was happening, I had to admit that I was a victim. And having been a victim in my childhood and not being able to acknowledge that, not being able to talk about that, it was like a cycle of denial. If I went into that space where I talked about my victimhood, I was scared that I would become a victim, that it would stick, I won't be able to get out of it. But then that other secret that I've been hiding for so long, that would then open the door to that, and all that would come out too. And I couldn't bear the thought of being a victim and losing, because then they win. If I acknowledge I'm a victim, but also then it's really happening. And I could pretend most of the time everything's fine, but it wasn't really.
Yeah. So you've left university,
you've
got this degree, it's set you up on your path, you've become this resilient person. What's next for you?
Well, I think, through my life, what I discovered, so you need to, going back a bit, I did end up leaving my husband in my 30s. I was free. Met somebody else, was very happy with him for 20 odd years. We split up amicably after 20 odd years, still good friends. But, my mental health did ebb and flow during that time. And in my 40s, my mental health was seriously suffering. My depression was getting worse. My anxiety and my panic attacks were getting worse, which I didn't talk about, because you're not allowed to talk about these things. I was a leader. I was chief executive of a charity. I was a councillor. You're in this leadership position. You're supposed to be perfect. There's this social media world now where everything's perfect and everyone's perfect. I had to pretend that I was perfect too. And then what happened is everything caught up with me. It all started, and I was falling to pieces. I was falling to pieces at work. I was behaving in ways that didn't live up to my values. My mental health was just out of control, and something had to change. And I went to a coach. Even my trustees knew something was up, but they didn't know how to combat it. So they suggested I did this ILM level 7, where you got coached as well, and leadership and executive coaching. I remember going to see this coach, and she said, "Why are you here?" And I said, "Oh, people are a bit scared of me, and I don't know why. And I've got an open door policy, and I want people to come and talk to me about this stuff, and no one comes and talks to me." And she says, "Oh, how long have you been a bully?" That's all she said to me. And it was like, what do you mean? I was so upset and so offended, because I immediately perceived that to mean that I was like my abuser, that I was a bully, because I perceived them as bullies, and I was outraged. And it was like, I'm telling you nothing in these sessions. I'm telling you nothing. She was so skilled that in 3 minutes of getting in that room, I was sobbing, and I was 5 years old again, and I was that child, and I realised she'd never left me, that she was hanging around my neck like a bad smell, because I wouldn't let her go. I was clinging to her because I wouldn't acknowledge the pain I was in, the distress that I was in. And as a result of all that, my behaviours to my mother were out of order. We couldn't be in the same room together because I blamed her. I blamed her because she didn't protect me. She didn't protect me. And not only did she not protect me, she didn't give me justice, because she created this culture, this environment where I couldn't feel safe to tell her what had happened, because she was such a big Catholic and all the rest of it. I didn't get justice. And the rage that I felt about that, it was worse than the rage I felt about David, my ex. He'd gone, I'd sorted him. I didn't have rage about him. I had rage about her. And it all came out in this session. And you know what? I cried for that little girl. I finally cried, and I let her go. And some days I feel her there. Some days I feel in it. But I allowed her to move into the space that she needed to be in. And I could then be in the space I needed to be in, which was in recovery, which was to move to this space of survivorhood. It was a slow and painful process. It was horrible, seeing myself through the eyes of others, understanding that in some ways I had been the predator, I had been the bully, that they had been to me, that I had behaved in that way. But once I acknowledged the pain, once I acknowledged the damage that had been done, the healing began. And what I also understood is the more I talked about it, the more I shared that lived experience, the better I felt, the better my mental health was, the safer I felt. And I mean, I didn't always feel safe in every environment, but I felt safer because my mental health was better. I could go out, I could do what I needed to do without having a panic attack. And then I understood that this was actually my superpower. And through talking about what had happened to me, I was healing others while I was also healing myself, and that was my superpower. And that's what I do now. That's what I do. I talk to people about what happened to me. I give people permission to talk about their stuff and to know that it's not your fault. It's not my fault. People do this stuff to us and we lay the blame at their door. They're the ones who did this to us. We don't have to carry it around us like this bag smell all our lives. Move on. Let it go. Yes, remember it, because remembering it keeps us real, keeps us grounded. But at the end of the day, that's not who we are. We are whoever we choose to be.
And it's so important, isn't it? Like, you know, some of the things that you just mentioned is working through that trauma, because we hold on to all this trauma as we go through our lives. And, you know, for me, especially, I'd held on to that unknowingly for a lot of years. And like you said, it just suddenly comes to a bubbling pot. And it's like, whoa, you know, and for me, writing, doing my memoir, getting it all out on paper was that catalyst to my healing. And just looking back on all the different areas of my life where, you know, even just bullying at school or things like that, even those smaller traumas that you can hold on to, writing it down and getting it on paper for me was that catalyst to letting that healing, you know, moving through my healing journey.
I agree. And also, now I reflect back, you know, when I was at school, I used to fight the bullies. The little kids would come to me and say, Alison, this person's bullying me. And it was my job to go fight the bullies on behalf of these young kids who couldn't do it for them. I've been fighting battles for other people all my life because of what happened to me, because I didn't get justice. I've been fighting for justice for everybody else. So it's defined me in a really good way. I mean, I'm knackered. Let's be honest, I'm knackered. But I am so privileged to have been able to have the gift of influence, of, you know, power that I've been able to wield in different ways, and hopefully I've wielded that power in a positive way, in a way that's not abusive in any way, and I know that I've made a difference to lots of people as a result of what's happened to me. But without that experience when I was a child, I wonder whether I would have found this place of knowledge that I've got now, which is that my place in life is to serve others. My place in life is to bring justice where injustice is. And by pursuing that dream of bringing justice, I found peace.
Yeah. So you were with Touchstone. So Touchstone is a charity that supports people through mental health.
Yeah.
So you were there for 30 years, and I remember
17. I was a councillor for 30 years.
Oh, so councillor for 30 years. So you were at Touchstone for 17.
Yeah. Still a long time.
And a real long time. And I remember, you know, some really good, some people saying to me, what an amazing CEO that you were, even though you're describing, you know, those points where you had that explosion and that you went through that.
That was early in my CEO career, and that's what made me, I think, a brilliant CEO. I think I was a brilliant CEO, but I didn't start off like that. I went through that process of healing and understanding and learning, and what that taught me was love. You know, love is the number one attribute that I've got to show, but not just to my staff, not just to the service users, but also to myself.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. You've got to be kind to yourself first and foremost, haven't you? If you don't fill your own cup up first, then you can't then pour for other people and support other people in the way that you want to support them. You've got to fill your own first. It's so important. So you've been CEO, you have been supporting the crime team, the commissioner, for 25 years.
Yeah, so I've been the deputy mayor for 2 years, but I've been working in policing on and off since 1999. So as a councillor, a Leeds City Councillor elected to represent Armley for the Labour Party, you have a privilege of obviously running the city, which I did alongside 98 other councillors from different political parties. And you get an opportunity to sit on external bodies, and one of those was the police authority as it was then. And I enjoyed a really happy time at the police authority, but also I then sat as chair of the police and crime panel. So I've had about 20 years on and off governance in policing experience, which have stood me in really good stead. So that's why Tracy rang me up in April 2021 and said, will you be my deputy and look after policing for me, because I had that lived experience. And so I was really delighted to say yes, because I felt that it was an opportunity to influence on a much bigger scale, because not only do I work across West Yorkshire with policing, I have a national role on race disparities, equality and human rights. So I'm influencing all the chief constables in 43 forces on things like race, racism, race disparity, stop and search, use of force, all this stuff. I've got a voice and I'm using it nationally to help people that I represent. We do a lot of work on violence against women and girls. As you know, that's one of Tracy's big pledges, but I'm also able to bring that pledge from West Yorkshire to the national stage too. So I knew I'd be able to make that difference on that bigger stage, and that's why I agreed to go. And it's been an enormous journey, and we're just at the start, but wow, have we made some changes? Have we made some differences? I'm really proud of what we've been able to achieve together so far.
It's incredible. You know, the strategy, because I was looking back, the strategy was launched in November 22.
Yeah,
Is that right?
And it's the strategy, the safety of women strategy.
Safety of women and girls strategy. And you did a survey at that time, and it said that 97% believe being a woman affects their personal safety.
Absolutely.
That's an incredible stat. 97% of women say that they fear their safety.
Yeah. I mean, I think all of us, you know, if you're going out on a night, you have to think about how you're getting there, but more than that, how you're getting back. How you're getting back. You know, if you're driving somewhere, even if you're driving, you've got to have your car keys out ready just in case. I mean, all the planning and the thinking about your safety that goes into being a woman, you know, it's not fair, is it? It's not right.
No. And we should be able to go on the streets and feel safe, shouldn't we? Wherever we go, it's important.
If we want to go for a walk in a park at 4 o'clock in the morning, I mean, and obviously personally, but you know, that should be our entitlement.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's not. But you know, it's not. You know, for some people, you're not safe going in the park at 6 o'clock. You know, at tea time, you're not safe going in a park at 11 o'clock in the morning, because some people's behaviours mean that it's not a safe space, or you perceive that it's not a safe space, even if those people have no intention of harming. Sometimes behaviour, and it's mainly male behaviour, let's be honest, makes us feel as though we're not safe.
Yeah. With this strategy, over the next 3 years, there's £14 million going into the service, which is incredible.
Yeah, so there's 14. So we fund £18 million worth of services every year. They're not all linked to
every year.
Every year, the mayor's got access. In the policing and crime team, we commission for £18 million worth of services every year. But a large majority of the things that we do impact positively on women and girls. So the SARC, for example, that's 1.6 million. So the Sexual Assault Referral Centre, that's for rape victims. That's for men and women, but obviously the biggest group who use that service are women. And we've also got a service for children to also use that service, which we commission. We've got ISVAs, IDVAs. We've now got independent.
What are they for the viewers?
So ISVAs is an independent sexual violence advocate. So if you're going through the court system and you've been raped or you've been subject to another serious sexual offence, they will support you through the court system, because we know that victims of those kind of offences have to wait a long time to get to court. It's a very rocky journey, and we want people to stay on that path to get to court, to get justice, because many victims withdraw before it gets to court. So an ISVA is there to walk that journey with you and keep you safe. But obviously, you've got somebody you trust you can talk to about your mental health, about the impact of what's happened to you. And IDVA is an independent domestic violence advocate. And then we've also got an, I think it's an ICSA, which is an independent stalking advocate. And that's a new service that Tracy and I have developed, and she funds, because we understood that stalking was a massive issue for women in West Yorkshire. So really proud of that. And also we influenced West Yorkshire Police, and they set up a new stalking coordination service so that they could understand better what stalking looked like, because they were really good at recording a crime against a victim, or it's harassment, or it's criminal damage, but they weren't understanding that they had 15 criminal damages or 15 harassments, and it was the same victim perpetrated by the same person. That's stalking. That's not one incident, that's stalking. So now they're putting things together. They understand, they've got a system, a computer system where you can just put a name in, and all the allegations against that person, or the crimes that person's committed or been reported for, they all come together so you can see the whole picture. This is all stuff we've influenced, so we're really proud of that.
This is amazing, amazing. If you were a woman and you're being stalked, what would your advice be?
Phone the police, absolutely phone the police. You can go to the Independent Stalking Advocacy Service without going to the police. You don't have to report it, and then they will support you through the process. But actually, if you want it to stop, the police are highly trained. They've got access to all sorts of resources. So, for example, smart water. So if you think that you're being stalked, but you can't see the perpetrator, or you can't prove that they've been to your house for whatever reason, if you've got smart water, which is like forensic marking liquid, and you can spray them, you don't have to get too close, but you can spray, and any of that spray touches their clothes or their skin, it stays on for 6 months. And it's all that every spray is linked to an individual. So the person who sprayed it, it's in your name, it's all being computer set to you. So within 6 months, the police find that person, that dye links him to your address, they've got him. Several people.
How do you get hold of that? How do we get hold of that?
It's West Yorkshire Police are giving that to victims of serious domestic abuse and serious stalking. So it's part of their toolkit to keep women safe. So it's only giving in some extreme circumstances, because obviously very expensive, and also we want to make sure that it's used appropriately. It's also used in the nighttime economy. So some bars have been trained in the use of it. So if there are people who are spiking, for example, as allegations of someone spiking, this door staff can spray that person, and then we can track that person down with CCTV cameras. You can prove that they were there, and obviously hold them to account. Or if there's violence or sexual assault, use the spray.
Wow, you can that's incredible.
This is all innovation that West Yorkshire Police have introduced since Tracy and I came into post, because they're really working with us.
Amazing.
They want to work with us on this agenda.
Amazing, amazing. Ask for Angela's another thing. I know that's been out for a while now, but do you want to explain what Ask for Angela is, just for the viewers if they don't know? So
as part, so Tracy has got a vision for women and girls to be safe in West Yorkshire. And that means wherever women are, she wants to keep them safe. And we've got a range of things that we're doing, which I'll tell you about in a minute. But one of those things is the nighttime economy. We want women to enjoy nightclubs, pubs, pictures, wherever we want to go. We have got the right to be out on a night. No one's going to keep us in. We can go out, but we need to be safe. So she has invested hundreds of thousands of pounds across West Yorkshire on night marshals, taxi marshals, training for publicans and premises on how to spot the signs of vulnerability and abuse. And Ask for Angela is part of that. So it's a code word. Anyone, men or woman, can go to the bar staff and say, "Oh, is Angela in tonight?" the bar staff will immediately know that that woman or that man needs to be safeguarded. They're trained, take them to a private space. It might just be they need to get home, or they're on a date and they're a bit worried about the date. Might be something's happened, might be being followed, whatever it is, they're trained. They get that person to a safe space. They phone the police if they need to, or they get them home. And everyone now across West Yorkshire knows what Ask for Angela is. Hundreds and hundreds, over 600 venues in Leeds alone have been trained up. And while they get training on Ask for Angela, they get trained on what vulnerability looks like. You know, a really drunken person, that's a vulnerable person. Drinks left unattended, you know, keep an eye out for those to make sure no one's spiking. You know, someone acting in a predatory way, they will intervene. So that is amazing. Someone just needs their phone charging or a private room for a bit so they can ring home. All that stuff can happen with Ask for Angela. It's all funded by the Mayor. But she's also got a variety of other things that safe spaces. So every nighttime economy now has a safe space on a weekend where people can go, you know, maybe get a blanket if they're cold, maybe get some flip-flops if the high heels are too high, maybe get a charger because the phone's charged, or someone there can phone them a taxi. In extremis, take them home. You know, there's all sorts of stuff that they've been able to do. The feedback has been amazing. So as I say, the nighttime economy has been an area of focus. So too has public spaces. So Tracy's funded a load of research with Leeds University into keeping parks safer for women and how to design safe spaces. That's been co-produced with women. There was a survey undertaken where women talked about how safe or unsafe they felt, women and girls. That was launched a couple of months back, and last week there was a international 2-day conference launching all the findings of the research. We sent the design guidance right across the country to every local authority so they could incorporate into their park strategies. So we sent it to every MP, we sent it to every local authority councillor, we sent it everywhere because we want to keep women safe everywhere, not just in West Yorkshire. Then we've got to also look at the stalking service, the development of the IDVA and ISVA monies, because even though we had ISVAs and IDVAs, Tracy's doubled the numbers, so women at home, keeping them safe. And then finally, transport network. So we've been told for a long time that women and girls don't feel safe on buses and on trains. So what's brilliant about having a mayor is that she's got access to lots of additional monies that maybe the Police and Crime Commissioner hasn't got access to. So she's got this bus service improvement plan monies, which she's using to fund 15 PCSOs. They're out for advert. The adverts are going live now, and I'm going to do a little video about that in a few days' time to put out on our socials. And those 15 PCSOs will be dedicated to the transport network in West Yorkshire. But the Mayor's also developed a bus safety app on the Metro card. So if you've got a Metro card and it's on your phone, there's a drop-down bus safety tool, and you can report on that where you don't feel safe on the network. Is it a particular bus stop? Is it on a train, a particular route? Is it in a bus station? And then those 15 PCSOs and the sergeant that manages them, they will be deployed to those places that West Yorkshire police, that West Yorkshire people are telling them they don't feel safe. And as if that wasn't good enough, the Mayor's also managed to get £40 million for additional CCTV and replacement CCTV cameras. So as well as being told where things are feeling unsafe, she's now able, when that money comes through, to replace CCTV or put in CCTV cameras at bus stops, as well as in train stations, as well as on trains, working with the police to understand where they need those to be, because you know they might have identified spaces where CCTV cameras would have been perfect. So we're enhancing the whole of the CCTV network on the bus and train network alongside the PCSOs, alongside the app. And so together, that's 4 spaces where the Mayor is really making a difference to the feelings of safety and the actual safety of women and girls. And where we need to go next is online. That's our next big plan. How do we do more work to improve the online space? Clearly, we are waiting for the online safety bill. What a laugh. But anyway, that will help us to find ways that we can keep people safe. But it is a key area that we now want to focus on, because women, we should be safe everywhere, at any time, at any age, wherever we are, in West Yorkshire and beyond. That's our passion, that's our pledge, that's what we're doing, that's what we're focusing on.
Incredible. It's incredible the amount of work that you're doing for West Yorkshire, but even beyond West Yorkshire is just amazing. And 2022, you got your OBE.
Yeah, that was
Tell us about your OBE. That's incredible.
It was a bit of a shock. So I got a letter in the December 21. So this is how it works. If this happens to you, you'll know. And it was from the Prime Minister's office. I got this letter thinking, oh, what's this? I was perplexed. I opened it and it said, if we offered you an OBE, would you accept? And it was like, yeah. So you have to sign a form to say that you'd accept. You send it off. It's not a promise of an OBE, so you don't know if you're going to get one. And then in the January Queen's Honours list, because it was the Queen then, my name was announced. It was in the Evening Post, so I knew it was true.
Wow.
And then I got a letter some months later saying your investiture's going to be in June. I couldn't do June, I was on holiday, so I ended up ringing them up, and we had it in the July, and it was like the most amazing day. I've somewhere. Oh, I've got a picture. I've got a picture of me.
Hello, let's have a look at your picture.
So
oh wow,
with my lovely,
incredible.
With my lovely dress.
Let me just turn. I'll turn the camera so people. I don't know if you can see that, guys. It's a bit dark at the moment, but yeah. I tried to show you, but we are live on the Facebook page, our Fix Your Future Facebook page, so you can go watch it on there. But yeah, oh, amazing! It's incredible and well deserved. So well deserved.
And ironically, having done Touchstone, it was for work that I'd done at Touchstone. It was for the work that, and I say I've done. I don't think I did anything. I think my fantastic team of brilliant staff did everything, but I got to shine, and that was my privilege. And but basically, we set up a food bank during COVID, and we had a food bank with a twist. So we offered mental health support as well as food. So food was like the Trojan horse, was the gateway. And when people, and then we started building this massive client group of people who wanted food every week. And then we followed up with mental health support phone calls. So we'd say, yes, we'll come and bring you some food. Would you like a mental health support phone call? And then they'd get followed up and they'd have an hour of support. And that's how we tried to keep people well. And clearly somebody heard about it and loved it. It wasn't my idea. It was our wonderful staff team. And I got the credit and the OBE, for which I'm very grateful.
Wow, amazing. It's something that really sprung to mind when you put on, because I was having a look at, on the Chief Crime Commissioner's page, and it just says, when it happened to me, I did not believe I had a voice, but oh my God, what a voice you've got. And you are just changing everything for so many women out there, and I am just super proud to even have you on the podcast this evening, even though we're a bit late.
I'm sorry about that, everybody. I am very sorry about that. My fault.
No, it's absolutely fine. I just appreciate you being here and talking about all the terrific work that you've done. What's next for you? What's the next thing?
So clearly, Tracy and I have got 3 years in this term of office. It should be 4, but because of COVID, it was the election was delayed a year, so it's abridged. And she will be standing next year. So I will stand with her, alongside her, and we will have hopefully, if the people of West Yorkshire deem it the right thing, we will work together for another 4 years to deliver our aspirations, because we've really made some amazing changes, created some fabulous opportunities for women and girls, made a difference in terms of the feelings of safety, I hope for men and boys as well as women and girls, but we've got so much more to do. The change that we're talking about, the culture change, it takes a long time to achieve. 3 years is not enough. Hopefully 7 will. Tracy will stand for 1 more term, 7 years, and then we will walk off into the sunset together. I have got 2 gorgeous grandchildren who I love and adore, and I spend a lot of time with. And so I want to look back on my career knowing that I made a difference, not just to me, but to the people that I'm here to serve, because I am a public servant. That's how I identify. Here to make a difference to the people that I live alongside, because I can't be happy if everyone else is miserable. That's how I feel about it. I'm a socialist, and I want to live in a world where everyone has got a chance to thrive. So I can't retire until I feel that that job has been done, and I'm handing the baton on to the next warrior who's going to carry on the good fight, because it'll never end. The work will never end. It might change focus, but if we can do the groundwork now, it will be easier for the next person coming along, and I will go off in the sunset with my beautiful grandchildren, maybe do something else. I don't know. I can't think that far forward. But somebody asked me what what's your legacy, and I said to them, I want to be able to come to the end of my life, as we all will get there, and look back and know I did the very best that I could. You know, at the end, we've only got ourselves, haven't we? We've only got ourselves.
Absolutely.
And whatever anybody else thinks or does, we've only got ourselves. And I live to my standards. My values are the most important things to me. And I want to know that I honoured those values. I lived the life that I needed to live to keep well and happy. And I did the very best that I could. And if that's how I feel at the end, and other people agree is a great bonus, but if that's how I feel at the end, I'll go happy.
And you know, I just became a grandma as well. She's 12 weeks old, and it's the most amazing feeling. So I'm right there with you. You know, it's just amazing, isn't it? It's like another level. It's another love, isn't it?
It's another level of love, because they're not yours. They are yours, but they're not yours. So you don't feel, you know, if they're naughty, it's not your responsibility. No, if anyone needs to tell them off, it's not you. So all you give is love. All you give is love, and it's the love you get back is just amazing. So yeah, I proper love my grandchildren, and I think they know that I proper love them. And I think my kids are a bit jealous, to be honest. But you know, that's what grandchildren are for. To you know,
absolutely,
it's that legacy, that legacy. But I want the world to be a world that's safe for my grandchildren. Yeah. So I've still got a bit. And I've still got a bit to do yet.
Well, I think you're definitely heading in the right direction, and you've already made some tremendous moves across West Yorkshire, and I'm sure it'll happen further afield. Thank you so much for coming on Heal with the Real. I really, really appreciate you being here. It's been amazing chatting to you. Just thank you so much for being a guest.
You're very welcome, and thank you for asking me. Sorry for the late arrival, but I really wanted to do it, and I hope that any of your listeners who have been affected by the stuff that we've been affected by have found this useful and helpful, because solidarity in sisterhood is all we can offer each other, and we should offer it to each other. And I hope that women have been empowered and now feel able to, you know, get up tomorrow morning and live the life that they're supposed to live.
It's so important that we pull everybody else up the ladder, isn't it? And teach other people to speak up and be the voice for others. So thank you so much for being the voice of West Yorkshire for the women in Leeds. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Alison. And I hope everybody enjoyed tonight's episode.